This is Jordan Lake near Raleigh, North Carolina, a place you might have seen me spending a lot of time on this channel. It's the main place where I camp, it's the main place where I kayak, and now it's the main place where I paddleboard. I'm standing on an inflatable stand-up paddleboard called the Sportsman. IL Paddleboard sent this to me for evaluation, and I've previously released a video showing just how surprisingly maneuverable this 11.5 foot long, 3 foot wide board can be. This video features much more about the Sportsman's specifications and usability that make this paddleboard a great choice for a paddler looking for some extra cargo capacity or maybe some extra stability on the water. I'm going to start with the fun stuff, paddling on this wonderful lake while showing what I think is useful about the board, details about what comes with the Sportsman, getting it ready for the water, and packing it up when you're done is saved for the end of the video, though you can find chapter markers if you wanted to skip to those parts.
Oh my gosh. This is about as calm as this lake gets in the middle of the day. Usually you have to be out here at sunrise or sunset. The wind is picking up since I've been here though, so it might be a little choppier when I'm done. But I wanted to get some footage showing actual proper paddle technique for covering distance with this. It is a very different way of paddling than a canoe or a kayak, because if I just sat here and rode like this, I'd keep turning one direction and then the other. But there are many different videos, and I watched them all on the proper paddle stroke. And the big thing to keep in mind is you need your top hand directly over your bottom hand, and you want to dig the full paddle in the water each time for maximum power. I forgot something very important, especially with it as deep out here. I am a former competitive triathlete and a very comfortable swimmer. But I do want to remain attached to this board should I dump. There we go. Got that leash on. And I've found it's more comfortable for me around my ankle than my calf. That's where I keep it. There we go. Ooh. Don't want to be without my paddleboard if I were to dump off. I also have a life preserver. This is a single chamber inflatable watercraft. If this were to burst, I would have nothing to keep me afloat. I'd have to swim for shore. And maybe, just maybe, I'd want to get myself and all the stuff that's on this to shore with me. And having a life vest will certainly make that easier. It's of course the law here. But more than it being the law, it's just common sense. Have a life preserver with you even if you're not going to wear it. They make belt life preservers that if you go overboard you can pop out and put on. I am a comfortable enough swimmer that I'm not worried about needing instant access to my life preserver if I'm attached to my paddleboard with a leash. When you're trying to get some speed, that's when I really notice that this is 3 feet wide, because I do feel like I've got more drag than I would have on a narrower paddleboard. It is 11.5 feet long, so that helps. But this is not set up for racing. This is set up for stability. This is set up for doing things like fishing. While this isn't going to be everybody's favorite paddleboard for crossing big stretches of water, it's actually really nice, has a good glide to it when you're not trying to have a high top speed. And that's mostly what I want to do anyway. I want to be hugging into the to the shore like this and getting a good look at the trees. And it'll be the same way fishing. It's very stable. I found that this is an excellent board for a beginner in the sense that it provides a lot of margin of error for your balance. See, I can even walk. It's jiggly on the camera, but it's got enough stability to almost walk up and down it in more of a normal fashion. Yeah, you can see in the camera it does move the board a lot, but I don't feel like the board's about to tip over or tip me over. I love being on this board standing up because it does give me a better view into the water and into the trees. Oh yeah, I see a bald eagle for sure right now. It's all the way across the way, and just for kicks, since I can see him for sure, I'm gonna cross the water here looking for boats. Bald eagles generally aren't skittish of boaters, but there's nobody else out here. And it's really looking at me like it's about to fly off of that limb. I hope I can get close enough to get some iPhone footage that will actually show that bald eagle for you guys to see. So peaceful out here. You know, there's a lot of hype around paddleboarding, but I found it's completely justified. It's a completely different way of engaging with the water. Right now it's glass smooth, so I can't show you how paddleboarding while you're standing up requires you to flow with the water. You have to accommodate what the water's doing. The craft itself doesn't cut through waves or wake. It's just going to follow whatever that surface is doing, and you have to do the same thing. But even just standing here and moving around, I have to make sure that my balance is centered over the board. It keeps me soft. You don't have to stay soft when you're paddling a canoe or paddling a kayak even. You can be soft, but this is a constant reminder that I have to be soft. Otherwise I'll end up in the water. Even when it's glass calm like this, if I'm doing anything other than standing still. Another thing about paddleboards, they're quieter. Ooh, giant fish just jumped over there. Because I can insert the blade, pull and lift, and still get an efficient paddle stroke, I can move through the water much more quietly with a paddleboard than with a kayak or a canoe. The paddle that Isle includes with this is really nice. I think it's real carbon fiber, which with its matte finish is a nice surface to grab onto. And like most of these, it's very quick to adjust low or high. And I do it all the time when I'm in thicker stuff. Paddle blades are always a point of confusion for new paddleboarders, but they are curved the wrong way, which allows you to get that good bite from a standing position and a good release as well. And I love this paddle. It's a very nice weight to it. It's extremely stiff. I don't find that it bends at all, not at the level of paddling that I do. Maybe some of the guys who are monsters and cranking on their paddles for racing can bend something like this, but I haven't done it. And for me, that's the big thing. The blade is stiff, and the entire shaft is stiff, the set of shafts actually, and then the top handle has a very grippy rubber set of inserts front and back with a nice palm swell and a nice raised area for your fingers, because you press on it like this. You're not grabbing on the top so much. And this is included with this board. It's a little hot for spending hours out on the water paddleboarding, but you don't have to be into fishing to get the Sportsman. It is a good board for a beginner in the sense that it provides a lot of stability, a lot of margin of error. Oh, there goes a great blue heron. When you're just learning how to stand on one, it has a lot of cargo capacity, so that if you want to spend a lot of time on the water, you can bring a cooler with you. And these Scotty mounts, I've got actually the pedestal mounts on the flat plates, and they're not in my way at all. And it allows me to position this camera wherever I want. I could put this rod holder wherever I want. If I wanted to just troll while I was paddling along. But as the country song goes, it's too hot to fish. So I'm not fishing this trip. I might be able to get out and fish with this, but all you're gonna see is whether or not I'm a good fisherman. And it's gonna have nothing to do with this board, because, you know, casting and stuff is gonna be super easy. That's part of why you want a big stable platform for fishing, so you can stand up while you cast. And that you can see already, just it's gonna be no problem to do it on this board if you are into fishing. But I think you should think of this board not as a fishing paddleboard. It's called the Sportsman, but it might as well be called the Isle SUV, because it's really like an SUV class paddleboard. Larger, hauls more stuff, gives you more utility, but you can have fun paddling around with it without using all that stuff all the time. And it's very economically priced. I've got the wind and the current doing the work for me, taking me across Jordan Lake at a fatter section. I'm going over to another set of coves to get out of this wind. But I thought that this would be a good chance to talk a little bit about how I set up this big board, even when I don't have a lot of stuff to take with me. I don't have my GoPro with me today. This is just me out here paddling. But I do have my sun hoodie, that's SPF rated, and I have it blaze orange so that I could put it on or even just wave it if power boats are getting too close. We don't have gaiters, but I do have Crocs. These are great boat shoes because they float. And so if one slips off when I'm in the water, it'll float to the surface and I can just grab it and put it back on. Plus they come off super easily once I get on the board. I like to be barefoot on the board itself. I've got a dry bag. In there, I've got my wallet, I've got my keys, I've got some tools, I've got sunscreen, and I've got some bags just in case I find trash. I got 2 insulated tumblers full of ice water, because I generally go through that. And you can see right here is one of the Scotty mounts that I can use for a rod holder or for my GoPro mount. A lot of my footage where you see from in front of me, that's where it's attached, and then the GoPro sticks up like this. Now I'm going to switch around to the back. And you can see I have a life jacket I've talked about that several times, and I want to make sure that I have that with me so I can grab it if this thing somehow ruptures, which is very unlikely to happen. You can see I've got the leash going all the way to my left ankle, and there are the other two Scotty mounts, there and there. And that's where, when you see the footage from the GoPro from behind me, I have it stuck in one or the other. But there's a lot of room for other stuff, even a second person or a dog. This is huge. This is absolutely SUV class. A couple other features that I like. You've got these loops here for holding the paddle. They're great for when I'm transporting the board and I want the paddle to be with it. But when I'm actually on the water, I'm just gonna slip the paddle in the bungees so it doesn't get away from me, because I wanna be able to grab it much more quickly to start paddling again. I don't wanna have to undo Velcro. The surface is this great thick EVA foam, and it's not only great underneath the feet for grip, but it provides cushion, almost like an insole in a shoe. And it's a lot the same as what you're gonna find in shoe insoles. It's also really comfy on the knees when I kneel. You can see these loops right here. That's for putting a seat, which I don't have. And I'm not sure that that's something I'm gonna be interested in using on this board, because I love standing up so much. And then you of course have the front bungees. You have 6 D-rings in the front there. You have 2 more up by the handle there. And then you have 2 D-rings right there. That's also for attaching a seat. You have 4 right there and another 2 in the back. So you have a lot more cargo capacity that I'm using right now. But that doesn't mean that this is an unusable paddleboard when I'm not carrying a ton of gear. It's really nice to have all my stuff spread out. The stuff that I want to use during the paddle is out in front of me. The stuff that I don't want to is behind me, and nothing's getting in the way of my paddling or my enjoyment of this. I'll include this carry bag, and it's more than just a carry bag. Even though it's got handles on both sides, it has a handle on the top. The nice thing about it is on this side, it has padded straps, a sternum strap, it has a padded waistband, it has vented pads even between your back and the board, so that you can actually use this to carry the board over long distances, or when you're traveling. You have a little ID place right here. On the back, you have a zippered pocket. It's big enough for manuals. I wish it were big enough to hold the fin so I could put it there and keep it away from the board itself. You have adjustable compression straps on each side and across the back, so you can help keep everything stabilized on the outside. And when we open this up, you can see it has enough room for the board itself, for the included pump, for the paddle, for the patch kit. Everything that you're going to want to have with you to paddle fits in this bag. There are even 2 compression straps inside the bag to stabilize the board or anything else you tuck in. And then it includes a compression strap to hold the board rolled up. And right there is everything that's included with a Sportsman. What I like is they also include a valve wrench, because valves can wear out and you need to replace them. You have a valve wrench. It also might come loose through use from temperature changes, things like that. You have this to tighten it up. They have a patch kit. This is not a kit that is everything you need to make a patch, because you're going to need to supply your own adhesive. Ooh, I got to get this between my knees to dump this out. But it does include each of the different colors of the board itself, as well as a spare screw for the fin, which is nice. And then you could get your own adhesive and little emery paper and things like that to add to this kit. It's waterproof, and you can have this bungeed onto the board with you if you wanted to. The leash is very nice. It's very high quality. It's one of these springy style leashes, which is my preference, because this helps keep it out of the way a lot better than the leashes that are just completely straight cable. You have this 2-stage pump like you find in a lot of inflatables. It has a single action mode
when the PSI gets high so that you're only inflating when you're pushing down, but it also has a double action mode where it inflates when you're pulling up and pushing down. That's very helpful to get that first couple PSI into the board because you're literally inflating at twice the rate. I also recommend hanging on to these side fin protectors. I use these anytime I roll up the board, and I leave them on while I'm inflating the board. In fact, anytime I have the board fin side down, those are on to keep those fins from getting curled, because they can kind of take a set in a curled position and then your board becomes all squirrely. So I'm going to inflate it just like this. I'm going to get everything ready, in fact, and then I'm going to set the board on its side to put the rigid center fin on, and only at that point will I remove those side fin protectors, throw them in my truck, and put them back on when I'm starting to pack this up. Using that pump takes me 7 minutes of nonstop pumping to fill the Sportsman. It is a fat boy. I recommend getting something like this from Amazon. This was $70 worth every penny. You can set the PSI and it'll automatically shut off. I have it at 16 PSI because I found that that gauge reads about a pound less than the gauge on Isle's pump. I'm gonna go by that gauge. 17 PSI is what I want in the board. Neither of these are scientifically calibrated instruments, but I'm gonna go with that safety margin anyway. And then I just turn this on and let it go to work while I finish up getting the board ready. At 11.5 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 6 inches thick, the Sportsman holds a lot of air, especially if you're going to fill it to the max pressure of 17 PSI like I do, as I like to make the board as rigid as possible. Rigid boards are efficient boards, with the Sportsman's EVA foam deck pad eliminating any discomfort that can come from that for me. I'm not exaggerating when I say that inflating this by hand takes me about 7 minutes of non-stop pumping. That's why I think investing in an electric pump like this is something a frequent paddler should consider. It not only means you will spare your energy and sweat glands before your paddle, but you can also casually get everything else ready to hit the water while the inflator fills the board. Isle paddleboards use industry standard fin pockets that allow you to replace the included center fin with your preference that might be offered by other manufacturers. However, I found this fin to be a great all-around choice for all but the shallowest of water. The locking screw design does mean you might drop a small, important, and non-buoyant piece somewhere hard to retrieve, so I'm glad that Isle includes a backup in the patch kit. Packing up the Sportsman when you're done is truly the reverse of getting it ready for the water. After removing the rigid center fin, I like to let the board deflate on its own while I get the electric pump set up for power deflation. Total time to deflate is maybe 4 minutes max, at which point you just roll the board up, wrap it in the included compression strap, then pack everything back into the included backpack. Once you're home, you'll want to unroll the board and let it and the backpack dry out before long-term storage. I've been very impressed with Isle's build quality, though that is something anyone should expect for a board that MSRPs for $945. The Sportsman's features make it a great all-around paddleboard for paddlers looking to cruise flat water with or without added gear. Other than the extra weight and girth carrying the board to and from the water, it also should make a great board for a beginner looking for extra stability when learning to stay feet down on a paddleboard. If you want to get a Sportsman or an Isle product for yourself, please start your purchase with a link in the video description. It supports the channel when you do. Be sure to subscribe for more paddleboarding videos. I really appreciate you watching The Tech of Tech, and I hope to see you next time.